Today, Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on episode 45 of Politically Conscious, we dive into Trump and Hegseth bold Quantico meeting with top military brass. Was the silent reception a show of discipline or dissent? We also tackled the looming government shutdown and the chilling question, are both parties united against free speech and against you? What does this mean for African American voters in 2025? If you're tired of the propaganda, listen to us. What's up, everybody? This is episode 45 of Politically Conscious. We got the original crew back in this thing. My man Shelly Winters as well as Emil Bryant. We got a lot of clips today. If you are a first time watching, we react to what's happening in politics, share a little bit of perspective from the left with Emil Bryant and from the right, Shelly Winters. I'll let them introduce themselves and we're going to get into these clips so we can push through this show and take care of these brothers who make the time for y'all to get rid of the propaganda that is very available in politics. We try to give it to you straight, no chaser. Emil, you'll go ahead and start off. Let them know who you are. Shoot it over to Shelly, and we'll get into these clips.
Hey, what's up, Montoya? What's up, everybody out there? Really appreciate you tuning in. I am Emil Bryant. I'm a political consultant, author, speaker, and life coach. And my job is to tell the truth as early and often as possible. I advise my political candidates, stop lying. Tell the truth. Tell it early, tell it often. Bad news does not get better with time. And what the people need is to know what's happening so they can make informed and intelligent decisions. We can't wait. Tell the truth.
I like it. Shelly, well, the Shelly Winters Show. Tell them who you are, brother. We're going to go to these clips.
Yes, sir. I am on 95.5 WSB every evening, 7 to 9 p.m., and I host the show, The Shelly Winters Show, on that station. You can listen if you're not in Atlanta at WSBradio.com. Listen every night if you can, or if you're in Atlanta, 95.5, on the dial, 95.5 FM or 7:50 a.m. and talk about everything. Have a lot of fun and try and keep it upbeat and just talk.
All right, let's get this thing started. This is what's obviously preeminent in politics right now, so we'll start with this clip.
Hi, are we still shut down, Doug? I live in number 2.
Why do I have to follow this? Good morning. Yes, we are still, and we pronounce this correctly, shut down. And that's going to continue, it looks like, for the foreseeable future. It doesn't look like any minds have changed overnight, so Republicans are still likely today to come up 5 votes short. President Trump and the First Lady leaving the Vice President's residence last night after dinner. But it's a meeting at the White House that's drawing more attention. The president sitting down with Budget Director Russell Vought to figure out what permanent government cuts should happen during the shutdown and how many employees should get the axe.
It's likely going to be in the thousands. It's a very good question, and that's something that the Office of Management and Budget and the entire team at the White House here, again, is unfortunately having to work on today.
And the president posted, "I can't believe the radical left Democrats gave me this unprecedented opportunity." Democrats say Republicans won't negotiate.
Since the White House meeting that took place on Monday, Republicans have gone radio silent. It's clear that they wanted to shut this government down, and they wanted to shut it down because they were unwilling to provide health care to working class Americans.
Republicans in the Senate today will try once again to pass a measure to reopen the government under current spending levels as Democrats hold out for more health care subsidies. And GOP leaders say Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is bowing to the far left.
It is a dark day in America because real Americans are suffering because of the political antics and shenanigans of Chuck Schumer and 43 of his Democrat colleagues in the Senate. They voted for 3 times now to shut the government down and inflict this pain.
Okay, so the Senate is going to vote for a 4th time today. The 4th time Republicans have tried to pass this bill, and it's likely to be, Mike and Alex, the 4th failure.
Yes. All right, Doug, have a good weekend, and we'll see you Monday. Hopefully, it's not going to get resolved by Monday.
I sent it to you.
It's the big news right now. So, Shelly, we'll start with you. Your thoughts about this government shutdown. My one question to y'all in describing wherever you want to go with it. How does it affect me right now as the, as an American personally? Is there an effect on me, or what do you think the effects could be if this doesn't solve soon? But go ahead, Shelley.
We've been through this before. There's not really an effect that you can visibly see. All monies are going to go out. If you're on public assistance, that's still going out. If you're on Social Security, that's still going out. It's nothing. It's not like you go to an airport. There's no one going to be in TSA or anything like that. All essential services, things like that, will carry on. Yes, if you're going to Chattahoochee Park for sightseeing, that may be chained off, but for the most part, it's not going to be something that you're going to recognize in your everyday travels. My problem with this, and I'm mad at everybody. I publicly said this. I say this again here. I'm furious with everybody because we allow this to go on. And the way they trick us into allowing this to go on, and it's really the purpose of what you're doing here with me and Emil when we come on together, is they allow us to fight each other and say it's the Republicans' fault, it's the Democrats' fault. And we at the bottom, we fight each other, allowing them to get away yet again with shutting down the government. Their basic function, they get elected to do really one thing and one thing only, and that is balance the budget. Like, that is every elected official's job off the rip. Before you can write a law, you have to know to balance the budget. States do it every single legislative session. Cities do it. Municipalities do it. Whether it's the city of Atlanta with a huge budget or city of South Fulton with a smaller budget, every municipality, every state has to balance their budget. The fact that we allow these people every 6, 7, 8 months to say, well, we're just going to pass a continuing resolution and then kick the can down the road because they can't do their basic function as an elected official. And that's what really pisses me off on both sides. Mm-hmm. It's irritating because you come to me and ask me for my vote and you tell me what you're going to do, and then you don't do it every single time on both sides. My Republican candidates came to me in 2024 and they said, hey, I'm going to balance the budget. I'm going to cut spending and I'm going to cut the deficit. And you did none of those things. And you're going to come back to me in 2026 and tell me you passed immigration reform or the Lake and Riley Act or something else or, other things. And I'm like, dude, I don't really care about any of that. I care about what you told me you were going to do. And you did not do it.
Yeah. And to your point, when you say, if at the basic function of what they are there to do, they're missing on the main job. So it's almost like if you or I go for an interview and we say, all right, let's see what this job entails. You would want to hire somebody who's an expert at the most important part of the job.
Right.
And at the end of the day, when we have all these laws and these things, like you said, they're the right laws and put it in the right terminology so that it plays out. At the end of the day, they have to be taught that part. But balancing the budget is the budget that we, the people, agreed to when we said we would like to see this, or another group fights and gets it, fights, over 10 years and turns it over. But it's just balancing the budget that plays out the things that we want. So that's just, it's very
one
important.
One of the first things in the Constitution that it says the role of the Congress is stewards of the money.
Yes.
That's it. That's one of the first things. So that means so if you and I am interviewed for a job and they said, hey, Shelley, we want you to be the night janitor at the Hartsfield Jackson. And the first thing on that list is keep the floors shiny. And that's whether I'm there 6 to 2, 2 to 10, or 10 overnight. If the first line in that job is keep the floors shiny, if the floors aren't shiny, I'm not doing that most basic of my job. And if I'm not doing the most basic of my job, I'm certainly not doing anything else.
Or no, what they try to do, to your point, is they'll do everything else in the job, but leave the floor shiny and say, well, I'm still doing these things. That's kind of how we get treated.
Right. I just took a pen mark off the wall down by the escalator. And, and so it took you 8 hours to do that? No, it took me 2 days to do that.
Right. Exactly. Emil, I know we can't. Yeah, let you jump in here. We're in the midst of the government shutdown. Your thoughts on it?
Yeah. So Look, the shutdown is a political stunt that has been going back and forth for the longest time. And the problem with it is that it affects everyday Americans. And that is, to Shelley's point, the reason why they're there, to take care of the needs of the everyday American. Now, you have a party that's the majority. Now, we saw this very same storyline play out when the Democrats were the majority and government shut down, and the Democrats blamed the Republicans, who were the minority. So it's just a role reversal, which means ultimately it's just a big game. And the game is who can play the blame game best. So you have the president saying that it's the Democrats' fault. And he's the one who said when the Democrats were in the majority and shut down the government, that he was the supreme negotiator and would never let that happen. And it's 100% the president's fault on their watch. And yet here we are. So what that tells you is there's no good faith effort to serve the American people. It's about scoring political points. And these political points are the most painful political points because the money stops flowing during these shutdowns when people need it most. The economy is not going to improve because of the shutdown. And people like Russell Vought and the president claiming that they're going to wipe out giant portions of the federal government during this shutdown are absolutely going to regret it come election day. But not only that, the people who are being hurt the most need these services now more than ever, and they're not getting them because Congress refuses to do what Congress was sent to DC to do.
So, question for y'all before we go to the next cut. What do we as the people, what does it look like for us to hone this in so that this game doesn't play out for the next decade and it becomes the blame game and everybody goes against what they tell it is going to do if this is their main job? What does that look like in your opinion, Shelley or Emil, either one of you?
Would you say that again? The blame
Just what
game?
does it look like for us as we the people going forward? We allow, as you said, we allow them to play this game with us, regardless of who's in power.
Right.
What does it look like for us in the future
to
get the rein on this so it can stop being this game that both sides play?
Carolyn Bordeaux, who's a former congresswoman out of Gwinnett County, she comes on my show every Wednesday night. She's part of a group that is just singly focused on balancing the budget. And they've been sending out for the last several months basically a no budget, no pay law that they want to get signed in through the Senate and then the House. So essentially, it's not like your pay is delayed. No, you don't get it.
I'm sorry.
For the time that there is no budget for the time that there's a government shutdown, whether it's a week, 4 days, you don't get that money. It doesn't come back later on, right? Like, so workers that are being furloughed, they'll get their back pay when the government opens back up. But for Congress, no, you don't work, you don't get paid. And they've been pushing this bill, and that's one of the ways we can do it, to force them to do it. And I also think term limits is something we as voters should be focused on as well. But mostly, I think what we need to do is we really need to let these people know. There's a poll, NPR Marist poll, that just came out a couple of days ago, and it said, who do you place the blame of the shutdown on? And I think it was 38% of the general public, meaning everyone mixed in, blamed the Republicans. 38% blamed Democrats, 31% blamed Republicans, and 28% blamed both. And I think if we can get that 28% up above the 38%, that would go a long way. Interestingly enough, 4% blame neither, which I have no idea who those people are. They've got to be just, special case, short bus people. It gotta be.
I could dig it. All right, let's keep this conversation moving. Hopefully we can get a mail back on this thing as soon as possible. All right, let me get one comment right quick here. It says, Kenny says, liar, Trump is shutting down the government for failure to negotiate. And that's something he said himself the president is responsible for, which is something that Emil just alluded to. Another comment says, Trump is working with the people over.
But can I say something?
Yeah,
can I say something to that point? That's a guy speaking before he was ever president. He said that, I believe, in 2019, during his third year, like he had just become president, and for the first time, and not even a politician before. And I'm not defending him here. I'm trying to make a point. The point is that very text message or email that person sends is why we're in this position, because he's forced, because he hates one side, to say it's your fault. No, it's everybody's fault, because you were supposed to give me a budget when you passed the last continuing resolution. That's what you were supposed to do. And it's not about, because the Senate can't do it because you need 60 votes. We only have 53. So it's never going to happen there if Democrats don't come to the table, and if Republicans don't welcome them to the table. And if everybody wants to do something crazy and there's accusations on both sides, then they have us in the same circular jerk of a trap of saying, no, it's his fault. No, it's his fault. And we never get it solved. And that's how they want us to be. They want you to scream out, it's Trump's fault. Trump is the president. He doesn't sign anything until it's sent to him. So he can't force these people to the table. He can't. And so to pull up a tweet that he said in 2019 and 2025, it just shows how partisan you are. And that's how they keep us fighting each other and not really understanding that they're playing us, the people. We're not playing them. They're playing us.
Nah, great point. And that's what the show's here for, right? It's a way to weed through. So you just weeded through how that propaganda is being used. Go ahead, Emil.
The power of the people is in the primary. Let's be very clear about that, because that's where the most fear can be induced in any politician, is in the primary. And it's time for the people to stand up and use that power. It's not enough to write letters. It's not enough for phone calls. It's not enough to threaten. We got to start putting these people on the street and putting people in place who respond to the will of the people. The Tea Party is proof. They did that in 2010, that if you put enough fear into a politician, they will bend to your will, the people's will. I'm not a big fan of the Tea Party, but I am a fan of what they did. And what they did was show how powerful primaries can be. On top of that, what Shelley said is 100% right. We need to stop asking permission to be citizens.
Right.
We have to start using every tool at our disposal to start throwing elbows and punching people in the throat and whatever non-violent means we need to. So yes, I use those two terms figuratively, because I'm here to tell the people that the power belongs to them. Whether it's in the primary, whether it's nonviolent protests, whether it's sit-ins, we have to start thinking through what the people can do for power. Because the bottom line is, neither party is in the interest of the people right now. And the reason why we know this is what Shelley said, but not only am I going to agree with them, I'm going to take it further. They're enthralled to interests whose job is best served through a shutdown.
Yep.
Wow.
And that's why you're here. You're not here because they can't agree. You're here because the people who feed them the dollars and the power that they say they want welcome a shutdown, because it pushes whatever dollar or business toward their interest. Right. And that is the problem. Congress is not representing the people. They're representing the people with money and power that they crave.
Yeah, that's it. And it's both sides. Everybody's feeding at the pig
Congress, Shelley. I'm not going. I know
everybody. Yeah, no, I understand.
535 of those bastards who are not doing their jobs because they're enthralled to somebody, not the people, not the citizen, and that money and power that they crave is flowing out and to the wrong people.
Let me tell you, I saw a show really quickly. I'll keep it brief, Montoya and Emil. I never knew this movie came out. It's called Worth. And basically it's about Ken Feinberg, who was the master negotiator. I forgot the term they use in the government, but he was the person, for the first time in history, they put together this administrator of monies to go to 9/11 survivors. Right. And this guy was kind of on a spectrum. He was not really social. He was a statistics guy. Mm-hmm. And so, but they brought him on board to administer. So Congress said, we're going to pay so they don't sue. Because if they sued all the people involved, the airlines, and if they would bankrupt the country.
Okay.
So Congress stepped in and said, okay, we're going to pass a bill in one night. You can't sue the airline industry, but Congress will pay you out.
Right.
And essentially, this guy was brought on board for them to work through the numbers, right?
Okay.
And so the interesting thing, there's a scene where there's a guy who's saying the government is kind of just using us, and there's no dignity in all of this, right? And so they have a conversation. And the point I'm trying to make is in this conversation, the guy says to Ken Feinberg is saying, we can't do that. We can't raise the floor. We can't raise the ceiling on where we start. We can't do that. And the guy says to him, within a day of this tragedy happening, Congress got together and passed a law saying that the people who lost their lives couldn't sue the airline industry. He said, you did that lickety split. Now you're telling me that the people impacted can't get the ceiling raised on how much they can get and the formula that you use.
Wow.
And it was a powerful scene because it tells you what Emil said. You know what I mean? Like, you're moving mountains. And the guy said, it's not like these victims are asking you to come down from Sinai, because they're both Jewish guys. And basically saying it's not you moved mountains,
right,
for industry, but you can't move mountains for the actual victims. And I thought it was a powerful scene that plays well in what we're seeing. You know, I'll be honest with you. I'm a conservative. I vote majority of the time Republican, and I probably will continue to. But I tell you what's changing in my mindset. My mindset is changing to the point where I'm going to be voting mostly for Republicans. But if I don't hear anything from my side, from that particular candidate, I'll go and vote for the Democrat or just skip over that race, you know. But I'm really leaning towards voting for people that I know, that I like, that I can trust, that if they say they're going to do something, they may get there and get stopped from doing it, but they're going to fight to do it. And that's really where my voting mindset is turning to, because I'm not going to be a libertarian. I'm not going to be an independent like you, Montoya, but I will start to look at people as individuals, with an R, obviously first, but as individuals. And if they have a D and I think they're doing a decent job, I don't have to be 100% on their side on every issue, because I'm seeing that I'm not on 100% side of my side either.
But that's going to be the reality for any human being. So you have to have, obviously as an independent, it's easier for me to do that. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, anybody I voted for, they got some things I can't stand. Like, that's just me as an independent. They all have something that I can't stand. But if they have more of the things that are important to me, then that's kind of how I lean into it. And then, all in all reality, I'm not knowledgeable of every position. And so I lean towards new blood versus incumbents when I don't have the knowledge to base. Let me go to the cuts, man, because we got to keep moving. All right, this is obviously something that just happened this past week. So I'll play these
Never
cuts.
walked into a room so silent before. This is very, don't laugh. You're not allowed to do that. You know what? Just have a good time. And if you want to applaud, you applaud. And if you want to do anything you want, you can do anything you want. And if you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave the room. Of course, there goes your rank, there goes your future. Of Russia, just to be careful, because we can't let people throw around that word. I call it the N-word. There are two N-words, and you can't use either of them. Can't use either of them. And frankly, if it does get to use, we have more than anybody else. We have better, we have newer. I'm going to be meeting with generals and with admirals and with leaders. And if I don't like somebody, I'm going to fire him right on the spot.
Move out and draw fire. Because we are the War Department. Godspeed.
Attention.
What just happened? Emil, you're the military guy. I'll start with you. I got a response from a friend of ours named TC, longtime member of the military as well. I'm going to share that with both of you, but I just wanted to kind of get your initial reactions to obviously the media is pointing out the silence that was consistent throughout the Quantico meeting with the military brass. And so you're a military member. So was that protocol, or were they making a statement, in your opinion, Emil?
Both. And that's what we should have seen from those generals and admirals, those flag officers. And don't forget the senior enlisted advisors who were also in the room. That's a very important point that's overlooked, that it wasn't just flag officers, which are generals and admirals in the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, and Space Force, but also their senior enlisted advisors representing the bulk of the military, the enlisted corps. This is very important. The military is supposed to be apolitical. If the Secretary of Defense wants to rally all 800 flag officers and their senior enlisted advisors, he's free to do that. But he should say something very poignant about the mission of the military. And I know he ran down a list of things, but I'll be honest with you, to me, this rang to be more of a political moment than it was a military moment. And the worst part about it was that they expected the military to do something they're not going to do. These are people who are in a public stage who are very partisan privately, but on a public stage did exactly what they were intended to do: show no favor. Their job was to sit there, listen to the orders given, and then execute those orders with all the authority they've been granted by the Constitution and the Department of Defense or the Department of War. My point is simple. That silence was perfect. It should have been no one applauding, no one cheering, because at that point, it went from a place where we can talk about military orders and effects to let me rally you toward a specific political cause. And the bottom line is that these are not people who are serious about winning wars. They're people who are scary and scared, and they're trying to figure out how to win those wars. The political war, I'm sorry, not the wars against our enemies, foreign nor domestic.
Shelly, your thoughts to what you saw?
I agree with Emil. One of the things that I found to be very funny was the memes going around with their facial expressions. Well, that's what a general and an admiral and as you called it, Emil, a flag officer does. They're apolitical. So if Trump says a joke, you don't laugh. If you're in the military. First of all, the personality of someone that rises that high. I've known several in my life. These are serious people. They're not, backslappers. I mean, they might be in a cigar room with an officers club, but they're not known to be personality-filled guys. You know what I mean? They're war people. They go to war. They send people off to war. They themselves have killed people in many cases. So these are not people that are light with their personalities or with smiles and things like that. These are very, very serious people. So I found it to be funny. A lot of the attacks about those expressions were read into, I think, way too much, to Emil's point, by the other side. I did not have a problem. I read snippets of Hegseth's speech on my show. I didn't necessarily have a problem with some of the things that he said. I saw it as a CEO giving a speech to upper management and changing the mission, firing up the troops, no pun intended, getting the people to change the culture. Hey, we've changed this department to the Department of War. Kind of little sketchy on that, but I understand it. You know what I mean? Because we're not we're being attacked, in real ways, cyber attacks in real ways. Things are going on around the world. And so I get the semantics. I get the propaganda. I don't really necessarily like it, but I get it. I understand. I'm not going to die on that hill. But my point is that I really didn't have a problem with him giving that speech. Because it was, like I said, it was to rally the troops. Did I have a problem with him talking about the PT of generals? Well, when I looked around at the few still pictures and videos that I saw, I didn't necessarily see a bunch of generals who were way out of shape. So I don't know. Now, the other side to that, to my point of speaking to upper management, it could have been a way of spreading that message so it goes from the top down. In other words, letting these generals, these unit heads know, hey, guys, We need to buckle up. We need to, get our troops in shape. We want to do this and start that message rolling downhill. But it wasn't an issue for me. It wasn't something that I felt overly problematic about. I just saw it as,
Gotcha. Let me share these thoughts from one of our good friends, longtime member of the military, and get y'all thoughts on that, and then we'll keep this moving as well. Good friend of ours, both. Well, you may not. I don't know if you remember, brother T.C. Curry, whatever. I'm sharing his thoughts here. He says, like some of you, I have thoughts about yesterday's mandatory meeting for senior military members held by the Secretary of War. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Secretary of War, Mr. Pete Hegseth, with an endorsement and message from the Commander-in-Chief, Mr. Donald Trump. Can you imagine Mr. Hegseth of Mr. Trump ordering your CEO/general and or executive team to a meeting about elementary matters? From my veteran perspective, what I watched for over 2 hours could have been much shorter and should have been shared via video message or email. Not one idea warranted flag officers and senior enlisted leaders' participation in person. What a waste of time, money, energy, and effort. I served under President Clinton, George W. Bush, Obama, Trump 45, and Biden. This administration, specifically the Secretary of War, is the worst I've ever witnessed in my life. Why Mr. Trump selected Hegseth is a mystery to me. Hegseth is completely unqualified to lead the department. Statements like stupid rules of engagement will get service members and civilians killed. I have seen some atrocious things on the battlefield due to no rules of engagement, violation of rules of engagements, and little to no values. Thankfully, I've never saw U.S. service members committing those atrocities, but it is more possible and more likely without rules of engagement or service members taking the liberty to interpret them as stupid. It is time for the Secretary of War to move on. Someone please counter me with facts that demonstrate he is the right person to lead and care for our nation's service members who are willing to die for the people of the United States. I witnessed a few military leaders announce retirements yesterday. I only wish some had walked out of the meeting. Please do not lecture me on the warrior's ethos. I've been shoulder to shoulder in combat with warriors for decades and will happily step back in the fight if required. We can do better than Mr. Hegseth. We should demand true leaders to care for our American sons and daughters. I know all three of us were never huge fans of Hegseth. I think I being the most having the most issue with him upon his selection, felt like he was completely unqualified. And I don't know if either of us agreed that he was necessarily qualified, but our brother TC says his main focus seems to be Hegseth is not the guy. Any thoughts from either one of you?
Yeah, I got thoughts. And Secretary Hegseth is so far out of his depth that he went back to basics. Let me tell you something about weak leaders. I'm going to be straight up with you. I've seen this in the military all of my career. When somebody's out of their depth, they do something that we all know to do when you're overwhelmed. You run back to what you know. And so we do this back to basics every few years, every decade or so, where we try to say it's important to maintain standards, which forces us to focus on things that we all can say we agree on, but don't actually advance the state of the art of war. And why is this important? Because we're facing enemies who have mastered the basics and are mastering the advanced concepts beyond the basics. And our Secretary of War is not up to task, period. He's not up to task policy-wise. He's not up to task military-wise, strategy-wise, or any other way we would fight a war using our military. He's not. And to say he is to put on him things that he had not earned, nor has he demonstrated. So I'm going to be very blunt about this meeting and about his presence. What TC said is 100% true. I know the warrior ethos. I've lived it. I am it because I spent 24 years in uniform. Why did I do that? Because I recognized that my nation needed leaders with great integrity. Pete Hegseth does not show me anything that would indicate he has the kind of integrity that would make me want to come back in uniform. It doesn't make TC want to come back in uniform, and it certainly doesn't make the men and women of the military more inspired than they already were when they decided to serve their nation for whatever reasons, whether it was college or loyalty or patriotism or family honor. Point being, we got to get him. We got to see him for what he is, and this was proof he ain't nothing compared to what the challenges are facing the nation.
Shelly, your thoughts, and then we'll get to another cut.
My thoughts are, of all the cabinet picks, and I said this early on, I'm on record of saying this, of all the cabinet picks, he was my least favorite from the very beginning. And then Kash Patel was second, and I had no problems with anybody else. No, for real. I love Bobby Kennedy for HHS. I loved, I did. I mean, I'm a.
Yeah, we know you do. Yeah.
I'm a huge fan.
Hey, you've been lucky to get away. We won't get to talk about him today on the show.
Right.
So we get to get away.
But I'm a big fan of his. I think Marco
Rubio
Rubio's done a phenomenal job as Sec State. Scott at HUD is doing a fantastic job. Vance, good VP. Like all the picks with the exception of Patel and Hegseth, but especially Hegseth. Even Kristi Noem is doing, I think, a very good job for what she's been asked to do. So I think she's been very effective. It's about the effectiveness of carrying out the policies of the guy in charge, the guy who got elected. So it's not about, but Hegseth, I've never been a believer in. I always thought I disagree with people that say he's a DEI hire. Because the reason why I disagree is because he doesn't say that. He's just a loyalist. And I think in that position, what President Trump found out the first go around was he allowed others to pick for him. And it wasn't successful. So that's why he values the loyalty over even competence. But I think in certain areas, that's not what we should be doing. Is very dangerous. So I'm not a big Pete Hegseth fan at all.
And I want to correct, because I'm so caught in, I'm a legal studies major, and I've been fighting this conversation about DEI since it's brought up. No, he's never been a DEI hire when you understand how DEI legally is used. Yeah. We actually equate. They tricked us into equating.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's why I said
you
it.
Don't mean it that way.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that's why I said it. Yeah. He really is.
Not, but I want to say this for the audience more so than to you, Shelly. Right? Like I'm always equating DEI has nothing to do with unqualified. Was he qualified? Hell no. But DEI has nothing to do with being unqualified. There is a history for it, but that is not the case legally for the last decade or longer. All right, let's move on to another subject that Shelly was very vocal about. We actually played your cut last week about this. So I wanted to kind of bring it up just to get both of y'all thoughts, since y'all both were not able to be on the show last week. So let's just play this cut, and we'll start with you, Emil. On this.
White boys that pulled up to the HBCU to looking for a debate, DEI, conservatism, etc., etc. I'm not here to question your motives, but optically, it wasn't a good look. Right message, wrong messenger. Now, I appreciate that you guys tried and also brought this conversation to the front of the class, because it's long overdue that Black people in the Black community, HBCUs, have a conversation about free speech and conservatism. Black people are conservative, but the HBCUs have turned into a liberal indoctrination camp. It has been infested. Black people are conservative. They send their kids to these liberal arts HBCUs. Then next thing you know, these girls cut their hair off. They got these septum rings, and they talking about white supremacy this, white supremacy that. All that money donated to the HBCUs, Trump allocating all that money. And what do you get from that? You get septum ring piercings, you get crippling student loan debt. Like HBCUs, they need conservatives, point blank. Conservatives need a space in HBCUs if they're going to change course. They might need a new conservative president, new conservative dean. They're going to need at least have a conservative conversation, because they're the amount of money being invested into HBCUs, and these kids are coming out of the school with this type of degree, with liberal arts degrees, and can't nothing in AI, engineering, nothing like that. They're just going there to be told that white supremacy is holding them back and why their student loan is the way that it is. Come on now. Come on. So
yeah, I agree 100% with what he says because all of this stuff is stuff that I say on a regular basis. The only thing I don't agree with is he said right message, wrong messenger, because I think that there's always a right messenger. And you can't pick and choose who can tell the truth and who can't tell the truth. More importantly, I think that their reaction to what happened on campus is more of a reflection of who they were and not necessarily a reflection of who it is that was bringing the message. Anybody should be able to have a conversation and have debate. And if you don't like it, then you should just walk away or you can observe quietly. But to run somebody off of campus was completely disrespectful to yourself, your parents, and your culture. But then again, I don't think that anybody cares about that.
Emil, your thoughts?
I'm tired. I'm tired of this conversation because HBCUs produce repeatedly the best and brightest. Winston-Salem State, is it Winston-Salem State University, or is it I can't think. It's an HBCU that produces the most black engineers out of anywhere in the country. Their HBCUs are producing the highest quality executives in Fortune 500s. HBCUs are responsible for so much advancement in this nation. So when he says that, what both of them are saying is just not proven by fact. And
let me couch and context this. What I'm asking you, just so we can go to this.
Sure.
The conversation is about the guys being driven off the campus. That was something that we talked about last week, and so I wanted to kind of bring it back to the table. Shelly thinks, just as Antoine Daniel says, "Hey, why did we drive them off campus?" And I'm sitting here going, based on the circumstances, it made sense to me, but I wanted to, give some more context. And so, really, the thoughts is about driving those guys off campus at a time.
Then let me address that, and let me be very direct about that part. When things went south for people not at HBCUs became the targets of opportunity. Why? Why were black universities that had nothing to do with Charlie Kirk and other things happening in broader parts of America, why were they all of a sudden under the crosshairs? That is a problem. And so when these two people showed up, that is the response to that threat was what you were seeing. You weren't seeing a very open conversation being stifled because these people just showed up and had opinions that people disagreed with. There is a threat on all HBCUs right now, and that threat has no basis in fact. So to see two random people show up and they get driven out because they look like they might be part of the problem that these HBCUs are facing is not a problem for me. You want to talk about policy, you want to talk about politics, you want to talk about liberal versus conservative, we can have that discussion, but you better control yourself because right now, every HBCU is on alert for what is a threat for something they are not responsible for.
And I think that's the context, and that's, Shelley, why I personally disagree with your deciding that we played your cut where you were saying we were weak. Like
it was. It was clearly weak.
I mean, I'm gonna say my thing. I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna let you go.
It was clearly weak.
I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna let you go. Let me finish.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm letting you. I'm about to let you go. So the context of the time and the period is if I'm a president of a university, the only difference I would have done is remove them without fanfare. I would have removed them without fanfare. But based on what Emil just said and the reality of me, you said I was speculating. I'm just saying, having tried to take mental dialogue on campuses, I had to go through steps to be on campus in that manner. So that's what I experienced. It doesn't make you wrong, but I wasn't saying it from a speculative point, just to say that to you, and I'll throw it over to you. But at this time, I understand a university president removing them. I just would have done it without the fanfare. Go ahead.
So first of all, several men already had conversations with them. There's videos of several men engaging them. Let me be very sexist here. It wasn't until the sisters got involved and started walking over there and started yelling and screaming and being emotional where it went sideways. But these two gentlemen had conversations with at least 3 African-American students, and they were very great conversations back and forth. That's one. Number 2, the same kid, Cam Digby, has gone on Georgia State's campus with no incident, no approval, sets up a table on campus in the middle of a city, right? In the middle of a city that has sketchy area down at Georgia State, and has done the same thing. The same kid, Cam Digby, just 2 nights ago was in D.C. on a street, a public street, and a public school teacher attacked him and had to mace her and throw her in the bushes. So my point here is if you can't engage in conversation, it is very weak looking, especially on a campus where higher learning is going on. Now, to the person's point, the guy that was talking, I disagree with him completely, because anybody should be able to have and open debate on any subject. I am African American. I'm not Jewish. I'm not Palestinian. I'm not Muslim. I can still have a debate with someone on anti-Semitism or anti-Islamophobia or anything. I have an opinion on that. You can't tell me because I'm not this, I can't talk about it. That's a childish argument. The third thing, if I will, is that when you talk about permission, what do you need permission for? They weren't armed. They weren't attacking anybody. They set up a table with a handwritten sign and sat behind it with microphones and phone cameras on selfie sticks. Where's the danger, right? And they were going on there to start the dialogue. The two subjects: is DEI illegal, and should all illegal immigrants be deported? It's a simple conversation to have, and it's proven by the fact that 2 or 3 brothers had already started having those debates by stepping up into line to have it with them. We looked weak, and we looked extremely ineffective, and more importantly than that, we looked scared to have open dialogue. Now, lastly, Steven Crowder is bringing back Change My Mind on college campuses with the table. That's what started this years ago. One thing he said was, I realized that in doing this, I end up bullying or beating up on students that don't have as much information at their fingertips that I have. So guess what he's doing? He's going on college campuses to debate professors and tenured professors and administrators on different things. You think it looks good if he goes to TSU, approved or unapproved, and no teacher comes out there to engage him? What do you think that looks like? And lastly,
so that looks terrible, Shelley. So okay, there's a slight difference here.
Well, hold on, let me finish. Let me make my last point. To you made me forget. To the point, the guy, he had made a comment. Oh man, I had it in my head. It popped back in my head, but he had made it'll come back to me. Go ahead, Montoya. Go ahead.
Yeah. So here it is. I think it would look terrible. And the reason, I want you to hear me say that, because where my pushback is with the student situation is different. So it's not just simply, you see what I'm saying? It's not simply that.
Well, one of the complaints on social media by what I call the black boule is that they're debating, adults are debating students with Charlie Kirk and things like that. And one of the big things going on is, why don't they debate the administrators? Okay. And Steven Crowder is saying that he will. Right. But the point I was going to make is this idea, man, it left me again. The idea, the guy's original idea, and he's right about this. Emil raised a good point. But I think, Emil, I don't disagree with what you said necessarily, but he raised a good point when he said, when he was talking about going on these campuses and everything, and your point is strong. That guy talking, what he was talking about in the beginning was the propagandizing that goes on these HBCUs, which we've been seeing for almost 50 years. These kids, like he said, you send your kid up there, they've got an open mind. All of a sudden, they're studying women's studies. They're ultra propagandized. They're ultra liberal. I'll use the quote unquote term woke just to make a description. And there's no open dialogue. I worked on an HBCU. There are no conservative professors on HBCUs. There are no conservative conversations going on. Thomas Sowell has never been invited to speak in an HBCU. When Rand Paul announced he was running for president in 2015, he went up to Howard to speak. They booed him, and he was talking about criminal justice reform. Wow. So what that guy was saying in the beginning, he's absolutely right, and that's what he was talking about, Emil. It wasn't about conservatism per se or the white kids per se. It was about these HBCUs are inundated with leftist, very Marxist, I would say, very far left ideology, and it's literally pushed on these kids. And it's pushed by the people who are funding these universities, the Ford Foundations, the Rockefeller Foundations, the Soros Foundations, and it's insidious, and it really is.
We got another comment from Kenny77. He says, I hate agreeing with Shelley, but he's right. They did this the wrong way. But if you can't discuss and defend your point via words and intellect, you've already lost the argument. And one more point from
here's one of the problems. And Shelley, I agree that we should open and welcome debate on our college campuses, but I'm not going to equivocate on the history of our HBCUs and the fact that they were the counterculture from jump. The counterculture of the beginning with Howard was to educate Black people in ways that they had never been allowed to be educated before. That tradition transcends time and it still propagates today. Is it liberal? Sure. But what is liberal relative to being Black in America? It's simply a counterposition. An educated Black person in America is a threat to a lot of people. And that means that they're going to look like, sound like, and act like things that the mainstream will not accept. I'm not going to say that they're bastions of liberal thought, because most of my friends who are HBCU graduates are not highly liberal, but they are
not now
pro-Black, and being pro-Black has often been equated with being liberal.
Let me say this. They are not now because they've gotten older. When you were in school, everybody was, because even I was. But they're not now in your 30s and 40s. Of course not. They got families. They're making money. So you become more conservative over time. My point is, as a student, they're being propagandized. And that's really
what they said 70 years ago.
But
Shelley,
the thing is, the most dangerous ideology coming out of the Black community is not the ideology that's being enforced by Hollywood, popular culture, the media by and large, or social media, or 90% of African Americans. The most dangerous ideology coming out of Black America, which should be shared on these college campuses of HBCUs, is Black conservatism, because we are really the threat to the status quo, not you. You're not speaking truth to power. You are the power.
You and I will always disagree with that, because being a Black conservative doesn't mean what it means to you and me, because I see it slightly differently. The most conservative position a Black person could take is to ask the nation to honor the Constitution, which is what we've always asked for since the Civil War.
And we still are.
That's not a conservative position, Shelley.
Yeah.
That is a human position. That is an American position.
You guys are not asking people to adhere to the Constitution. You want to change it every single time. We passed the Civil Rights Act, and you started adding sexual identity and gender to a list of
We didn't add that. What are you talking about?
You allowed it to happen. You allowed it to happen. I'll tell you, here's another thing.
We allowed it to happen.
Let me tell you what's another thing.
We found common cause with Jews. We found common cause with LGBT. We found common cause with a lot of people, because oppression bleeds up. It always bleeds up. So if you don't squash it at the lowest level, you'll never squash it. And that's the problem.
Let me tell you, Emil, let me tell you another example. Right now, and I gotta go because I got a new hip, y'all, and my PT guy is here. So,
he's there already. Oh man, I want you to hit this last cut.
Melvin, say hello to everybody.
Hey, matter of fact, can you give me 5 minutes?
Yes.
So let me cut you off.
No, hold on. Let me just say this.
I know you want to see this cut.
No, I do.
Give me 5 minutes.
I only need a minute. I'll say this right now. What is it? ICE is in Chicago. And I'm seeing posts from our people, African Americans. This is to your point about being liberal in America as an African American. They're posting, are all my people in Chicago okay? ICE is raiding projects and things like that. And I'm thinking to myself, how blindly crazy is it that after years and years and years of murders and shootings every weekend, that now Black people are all of a sudden worried about ICE in Chicago? And you've never worried about the deaths before. I'm talking about on social media. I'm not talking.
Shelley, that's two different things.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Versus
no, it's not. No, it's not. I'm making a point.
I'm not. Don't do that, bro.
I'm bringing up the reaction is the same. This
bro,
not
that
untrue.
Is not,
it is not
out
but
there.
The point is, here's why it's happening. Here's why it's happening. Because we are finally being left out of the argument now. They don't care anymore. They don't care what you
They were
think.
detaining black and brown United States citizens, Shelley. That is the reason why people were checking in, because the federal government had overstepped its bounds once again and done unconstitutional things in Chicago with that ICE raid. And they had detained U.S. citizens.
I'm playing.
Dr. West. And Asada says, I have never really understood exactly what a liberal is. Am I meddling? Since I have heard liberals express every conceivable opinion on every conceivable subject. She said, as far as I can tell, you have the extreme right who are fascist, racist, capitalist dogs like Ronald Reagan who will come out and let you know where they're coming from. And on the opposite end, you have the left who are supposed to be committed to justice, equality, and human rights. And somewhere between those 2 points is the liberal. As far as I'm concerned, liberal is the most meaningless word in the dictionary. So we've talked about the authoritarian fascist regime in the White House.
Yes, yes.
But one of the things that cannot get lost is all of these people are not maggots, right? That some of them will say they're blue and they turn red when the lights go off.
Ooh.
So my question to you is, they'll even say they voted for Obama twice. Twice. How do we build solidarity where there is no trust?
Oh, boy, that's a profound question. Because trust is not the kind of thing that falls out of the sky. You see, when we were talking about Casey playing the piano, you see, the only reason why they allow him to play the piano because he can play. He's tried it and true. He's been tested. It's like you in a foxhole. Somebody you trust, don't make no difference what color. After a while, you can trust them. Trust creates context, a struggle together. Now, Sister Asada, let me say this about my dear sister, because I have a deep love for her, even given certain disagreements, that she's speaking from her own very, very rich experience. And you see, all of us are who we are. Everybody's who they are, not somebody else. And when you lift your voice, you got to speak out of your own experience. You got to say what you mean and mean what you say. Don't pose, don't posture. And what I love about Asada is she's like Malcolm X, she's like Fannie Lou Hamer. She says exactly what she means. It's hard to find that in the culture these days. People will say anything for success, say anything for money, say anything to be on the team, say anything because they don't want to deal with the consequences of criticism coming their way. No, say what's really on your mind. In her experience, she could not depend on liberals. She was a revolutionary. And it was the liberals who forged the crime against humanity called mass incarceration that had devastating impact on chocolate communities. It was the Democratic Party and the liberals that did that, and they come in all colors.
I know you got to go, Shelley. So any thoughts? So we both give honor to Asada. I highly recommend people read that autobiography. But your thoughts before you go, Shelley.
For rest in peace. I gave what I said on my show. I thought it was a beautiful tribute to her. I got a lot of flack for it. She was, we speak a lot of people being of their time, right? So the founding fathers, many of them were slave owners. And the reason we give is that they were men of their time. And I get that argument completely. I get that argument, right? But they were also men of their times who fought and understood that the system of government we're setting up is designed to eventually weed that out, right? They didn't include it in the Constitution. They didn't legalize it. They saw a day when it would go away, right? And so she liked the founding fathers, and I'm not comparing them. I'm just making, using the analogy, is that she was a person of her time. At the time, the police were waging war on the Black community. The police was waging war on the civil rights movement. The police was waging war on the anti-war movement. The FBI. I mean, this was going on. People were getting their heads smashed in literally for walking down the street. And so, if you're in that position, as I said on my show, when the Revolutionary War started, the first act of violence to the start of American Revolution was throwing tea into the sea that was not owned by the people who threw it into the sea because of taxation. It wasn't because of violence. It was because of taxation, because of money. And then the British government came in and tried to kill and started firing on the citizens. And so people took up arms. So violence is necessary when trying to achieve freedom. And at that time, I wouldn't say that we need it now, because it's not the same place that we're in 2025 that we were in 1960s and early 70s. But it was a heady time. You remember 68. John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, 4 people all taken out through violence. And so, we've got to remember that. So, but to Brother West, I love him, but, he started off with, that's a profound question. It's not profound. We do it every day in our daily lives. Me and Emil disagree on a lot of things. We agree on a lot of things. But if Emil knocked on my door right now, he's got a place to stay, food to eat. He could take my car keys and everything. And it's not about trust or lack of trust or politics or anything. Emil's my dude. I got white friends. I got Jewish friends. I got Muslim friends. I even got an atheist friend. It's like it's humans. To label a group as, oh, they're scum and I'm not going to trust them because they're liberal or they're conservative, or worse than that, the worst case scenario, they're white. That's kind of a horrible way to live your life. And I can't live my life like that. I trust everybody. I give you a level of trust at the outset. It's up to you to break it. As long as I don't lose my life, I just learned a lesson. That's the way I've always lived my life.
Well, thank you for your time. Let them know how they can keep up with you one more time before you leave, and let's get to your
my PT.
Yeah,
my PT with Melvin.
Yep.
You can find me on 95.5 WSB Radio FM or 750 AM every night, 7 to 9. Or you can find me if you're outside of Atlanta at WSBradio.com. And that's where I'm at. I'll be there tonight at 7 o'clock. Peace out, y'all.
All right, we got a comment for you, Go. Says, thank you for that. Humans before politics, based on what you said.
That's my man James. We worked together at Air Gas years ago.
I could dig it.
But he's going under a pseudonym.
That's him. He's one of the members of my club. He's been a member.
Right? Yeah. No, that's my boy. I've known him for a long time. Love you, James. All
right, good stuff. Emil, stay with us for the after innings, if you don't mind, brother.
For sure.
All right, good stuff. Any response to what you saw with Asada? Because again, I just want to. I'm paying a tribute to her. I have a book signing over at Madu Bookstores, historically famous bookstore here in Atlanta, on October the 11th, and we're going to pay a tribute to her by just doing some reading out of her autobiography. But I only thought it was right, losing that sister, that we highlight something about her on this show. So any thoughts in reference to what you just saw, that lady, just kind of sharing some of her words, and Cornel West responding. Your thoughts, and then we're going to do one more cut for extra innings.
Mad respect to Assata Shakur, rest in peace and rest in power, because she was a soldier who went through it for our people. And the reason why people are pushing back is because they don't like symbols of that kind of power and authority in this system. So I'm very, very impressed that she's gotten the love that she's gotten. And I'm thankful that she's getting the pushback that she's getting from the mainstream of America, because they're also struggling with the fact that somebody like her is a hero to people like us. So we're not just going to let them define the narrative. We're taking our narrative back. And Assata's story is one of the things that we need to remember and respect and honor, because there's more to it than she did this bad thing and ran away to Cuba. She was someone who was an intellectual thought leader. She was also a leader, an organizer of the movements that help keep our people at the forefront of freedom and opportunity in America. So mad respect, mad love for her. And to Shelley's point, if you ain't human, you ain't one of us, because part of what we do is we see the person and not the credentials. And when we look at the people, we recognize that there's a human being behind all of those labels. And we want to make sure that human being is seen, known, heard, and respected.
No, absolutely. A lot of men, myself included, highlight the flashpoint that the autobiography of Malcolm X is in our lives, just seeing America different and learning to think different. Something that Malcolm X highly pushed was critical thinking. I, having read Assata years later, put that book on that same level, and always encourage our sisters, if they're not going to pick up Malcolm X, at least pick up Assata. obviously, I would say to most African Americans, read the Malcolm X autobiography as well as the Assata biography. But if it's going to be one, and I'll say by gender, see the good fight that our brother Malcolm fought and the absolutely wonderful fight that Sister Assata fought through her autobiography. So highly recommended. The cool thing is, again, I'm gonna pay a tribute to her during the Re-Education of the Negro book signing that I'll be doing on October the 11th. The book's been sold out since her pass, since she's passed. So, so if you do come out, you can order it and be one of the first ones to get it as the publishers are putting it back out. But since she passed, like a lot of things, the sales of her books just went out the roof. So a lot of people are going to get exposed to her way of thinking and ultimately her commitment to our community. So again, salute to that sister. All right, for the extra innings, I'm going to just do one cut. I got like two or three more, but I'll just do one just for sake of time. It's just highlighting another a brilliant podcast called Grits and Eggs. This is my favorite podcast currently right now. And I wanted to play a cut by Candace Owens talking about how our freedom of speech is being neutered right now, literally by both sides, but clearly by the administration end right now. And so she is totally, for as much as you love or hate Candace Owens, she is totally against the shutdown of freedom of speech and how this administration has taken the Kirk assassination, Charlie Kirk assassination, and now are severely impeding on our freedom of speech. So one thing I will say to all of our watchers, again, we're trying to weed through the propaganda. If there's a place that both sides, whether you've been on a team, can unite, it is this freedom of speech, because that is the first thing that any authoritative government, whether it's a king or whether it's a president, the first thing to go is freedom of speech. And so we are aware that is being taken. I hope that even if you're on a side, this is an area where we can unite and go against those who care nothing about our freedom if they're trying to take our freedom of speech. That's all I'll say about that. But this brother from Grits and Eggs just kind of highlights the Charlie Kirk thing and unfortunately what happened to brother Trey Reed. So we'll play this, get your thoughts, Emil, and we'll shut down today.
Now, let's say this. The right has been saying for quite some time, especially right-wing comedians, oh, man, the woke culture, the politically correct culture, this PC culture, we can't say nothing or we'll get canceled. And all that is like niggas just want to be racist. Mm-hmm. It's not a critique of government. It's not a critique of anything culturally significant. It's not a critique of anything communally significant. It's not even a critique of anything nationally significant. It is just, I want to be racist. Yeah. You are not being canceled by the president. You're not being canceled by corporate interests. People are literally, this is people saying this. People are like, look, bro, we don't fuck with that. Yeah. This is the public outcry. This is not like a corporate outcry. Mm. This is a corporation saying, well, you can't say that, even though they do play it safe because of the court of public opinion. That is a very healthy arm of democracy. The court of public opinion is very healthy to the arm of democracy. Right. This is how we have a civil society. Yeah. Fox News giving people the green light to commit violence against the homeless. Mm. So not only do we get Trey Reed lynched, we also get Corey Zucattis lynched in Mississippi. Mm-hmm. We get 7 homeless people shot in a homeless encampment in Minneapolis. These websites, these news sites, these corporate media will give you a green light to enact violence on homeless people or people of color, specifically black people, in a time like this. And an apology is sufficient. Jimmy Kimmel criticizes Donald Trump loses his job. Fox News anchor says we should euthanize the homeless on air, and all he has to do is issue an apology. Still gets to keep his job. Something's wrong with that. Trey Reed gets lynched in Mississippi, and they suspect no foul play. Who's going to investigate? The coroner and the sheriff.
Emil, your thoughts? I think the brother broke it down brilliantly. I think we have to talk through these nuances of what actually is the government, right? Like he highlighted, the woke culture that people complained about wasn't always or typically the government. It was public opinion, and people still were kind of pushing against it, like, oh, look at the times we're in. Now we're actually seeing it come from the government, going all the way back to Trump trying to shut down Harvard earlier in one of our earlier episodes this year, to continue and seeing those pushes to shut it down. So I think it is a huge difference, and I love how Grits and Eggs breaks down it from their perspective. Your thoughts on that, brother?
It was a beautiful breakdown, and this is the problem that I think a lot of us kind of have to wade through. So let's just sort of unpack the propaganda real quick. The woke culture came out of political correctness. Political correctness came out of the fact that Black people didn't want to be called the N-word anymore, or what I call the N-bomb. I can't use that anymore because the president apparently has another N-word. But
crazy,
right? So there's a very direct line from, you are using words that are patently disrespectful and outright dehumanizing into something that other people jumped onto, much of which was correct, to that they should have been added into that milieu. And now we turned it into what we call political correctness, and that became woke culture. The problem is, you are not allowed to disrespect me without a consequence, because I'm an individual and I can levy a consequence. As a corporation, I can levy a consequence if you use disrespectful language or do disrespectful things. Versus the government, who is, by the Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, the very First Amendment says very clearly that the government will not curtail the speech of the citizen, specifically because the citizen has a right to has a right for redress of their grievances. In other words, I'm complaining about my government to my government, and I expect my government to respond to my complaint. That's what free speech is for. So anyone who claims free speech out here, who's using free speech to call me the N-word, is actually not constitutionally protected, because they're not using that right to criticize their government and expect an address of their grievances from that critique, from that critical speech. That's the difference. The government does not get to tell the citizen how the government should be addressed. I can address the government with cuss words, with scientific theory, with whatever political action words I want to use. I can go attack my government and not expect retribution. But if I attack Montoya, if I attack Mental Dialogue, you can use your platform to denigrate, push back, fight back, however you choose, because you as a private citizen, you as a business owner, have the right to levy a consequence against me, especially if it's nonviolent. So free speech, protected. I can talk about my government, but
it can even be violent.
I'm
about to give my boy Tim Jackson some props out there. This brother serves in a position out somewhere in Dallas, Texas. Unfortunately, got into a little riff at a meeting or whatever. Again, he's serving his city, and God decided to come to his house. So when you said you can live a consequence non-violently, no, he gave the guy a black eye, and he took to jail for stepping on his property. So to your point, you know what I'm saying? He's a public official, but he takes it too far, shows up at that man's house, and my brother Tim Jackson, put him in the police car with a shiner.
And hey, this is the thing that I think people don't understand about free speech. You address your government. In fact, I think most people waste their free speech trying to offend other citizens. And I'm like, why would you use that? Your government has so many problems. You should be up in arms about any one of them and use your free speech to address those issues, versus trying to call me the N-bomb or trying to say things about your fellow citizen under the guise of free speech. Are we a free society? Yes. Can you say what you need to? Yes. But here's the point. If the government can get you to squash criticizing it, it can do whatever it wants without fear. You need to put fear in the heart of every official in government by speaking up. And that's the problem we're seeing, is that when Charlie Kirk was killed, they were like, you can't say anything bad about Charlie Kirk. The government saying that? That is absolutely unconstitutional and should have been checked immediately by the people. We're going to say whatever we want to. And Jimmy Kimmel, who said a very tasteful joke about what was going on in the administration vis-a-vis Charlie Kirk, felt reprisal. Had the FCC commissioner said nothing and ABC did what it did, no problem.
No problem.
But the FCC commissioner very clearly said, you can do this the easy way or the hard way. And I'm like, are we running a government or a mafia? Because the easy way and the hard way should not come out of the lips of a public official when it comes to the free speech of an individual citizen.
Period, point blank. So I am going to close with Candace's thoughts, but we're done for the day. We'll pop up on y'all next week. Make sure y'all are subscribing. Make sure you are signing up for the notifications, because we don't always pop up at the same time. So the only way you can keep up with us is to actually hit that notification button. And again, I think you summed it up brilliantly. I just want to play this cut so people can just kind of still weed through the nuance of this freedom of speech. And more importantly, pay attention to what our government is doing to us. And I'll close with what I've already said. If there's ever anything to align on, whether you're on the right or left, I would offer this is it. Thank you for a great time and great conversation today, Emil.
Oh, my pleasure as always, brother.
All right.
Pam Bondi, who is a complete loser and a tool, is trying to use the assassination of Charlie Kirk to lay the groundwork for hate speech laws in America. The very thing that Charlie was fighting against. They all just got right to work trying to pass laws. Well, Charlie Kirk is that, so now we got to hate speech is something. Exactly what he's messaging me about that he doesn't want to happen. They're trying to use his death to justify. Listen to what Pam Bondi said to Katie Miller on her podcast. Take a listen.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech.
No.
And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
So to be clear, that's the feds telling you that they want to pass speech laws, which will basically just give them the full power to go after you for wrongthink, okay? And they're doing it in the most disturbing way ever by going after Charlie Kirk's legacy and using his assassination to say, oh, well, now we've got to get hate speech done, which, by the way, who was the person and the leader who said that he was passing laws against speech in America? That was Bibi Netanyahu.
מי שיחרים אותנו מוחרם בעצמו. בשנים האחרונות קידמנו בארצות הברית, ויש כבר ברוב המדינות שם, חוקים שמי שמחרים את ישראל נענש בעצמו. אז זה לא יעזור להם, אנחנו לא מתרגשים מזה, ואנחנו נלחמים בזה.
When something chaotic happens, we usually turn to the government. I mean, 9/11, what did we do? We gave them so much power, right? The Patriot Act. Do whatever, just keep me safe. It's like they see your emotion. They see this global emotion and they want you to just agree with them that the next step is more power for the government. And this time we're saying no. No, Pam Bondi. No, thank you.
Hey, a lot to think about. See y'all next time.
Peace.